Good morning, everyone. Today is September the 4th, yeah? September the 4th. And this is the Moneyball Morning Report for the Benzinga Pro platform. My name is Anne-Marie Band. We are looking at something that might resemble a double topping formation. And so my thought is still the same. If we expand out into weekly formations and even monthly ones, we're going to see that we have been in a very bullish patch of motion. And a lot of times that means that traders who are following trend are going to be patient enough to buy the dip. Now, the problem is when buy the dip stops working, it can often feed the flow down a bit faster. And yesterday, although I don't know the reason why, in quotations, we really did move almost straight down, okay? So we had a fairly bearish candle. We've wiped out the moves of the last 2 weeks prior to this current one, and now we're in this candle body. So let's use the 50% rule and just see where that 50% sits. Oh yeah. We'll leave it at the 61.8, okay? Because I've already got a line there. 54.13, it matches with a little bit of heavy congestion. Looks pretty good. We'll go to the daily and we'll check it out. But right now, what's been happening in the overnight is that buyers have been fighting tooth and nail to hold this level at 55.21 and recover. And they've been having a pretty tough time. Oh, for heaven's sakes. I got to try to lock these things so they don't do that. So this is what we want to watch. It is still sell the bounce formations from an intraday perspective. All right. And so we have now a clear resistance line and we have a widening press downward. Here is the VWAP over the particular range that we're looking at. And here is the point of control. So the VWAP and the point of control are going to show these sort of high volume areas, and people are going to continue to chop around. My thought is always this. When we are in a trend and we start chopping in a range and we cannot bounce, it's usually bad news. On top of that, here's what could happen. See this area right here? It could fade, bounce, make things look like it's fantastic, but then fade again. So we have to lean on the hull. And this is our hull moving average. For those of us that don't know, we're using the 18, and I'm using the open high, low close divided by 4. Okay? And so because I don't care what number it is. I don't care if I touch it. That's not how this hull gets traded. It gets traded because it tells us directional flow, okay? And right now, directional flow is downward, so bounces are going to be sell zones. Key bounce area, that might be a nice sell zone, 56.11. Well, holy cow, that's almost 100 points away. But yesterday was a pretty rotten day, and so we could have a pretty big snapback bounce. Remember, I've been saying this for I don't know how long, so I know I sound like a broken record. But this is not a continuation chart. This is going to be a chart that looks like this. Savage move up, savage move down. All the way around, it's going to be a mess, okay? So here we have 2 days of motion down. My thought is the following, taking a look at the hourly candlestick formations. If my trend is down, and I've been moving sideways, 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 and I do not break above, I'm going to say, where is it really? It's just before this low volume node. This 58, this 68.50 I like, 56.11 I like. I'm going to have to add another line in the sand. If we do not get above this 55.38.50 area, this thing is going to fall. And look at the 30-minute, or is this a 50? 30, right? The 30 moving average is very sharply downward. So a reversion to the mean, which would be a bounce back into the VWAP or the point of control, would give us that shorting formation. So is the chart trying to hold? Yes. Is the hull telling us, hey, This chart's trying to hold. Yes, but it's still sideways. So the buy zone for the least risk is way down here at the value area low, 55.08. And the sell zone is, it could be as shallow as 55.38, or we could have a bounce action event that gives us 55.68. All right, so that is the relative motion that we're looking at across the board. Here comes Mr. Weakness. This is doing exactly what we thought it would. Hey, bounces are going to be sell zones. Take a look at this hourly candlestick formation, doing the same thing. If we cannot get up over 18,978 and hold, this chart is, where is that? 974, 974.75. Okay, that's great. If it can't hold that area, it's headed back downward. If it loses this range, it's headed back downward. If it gives you a bounce down here after this collapse, it could be pretty savage. So the trade here, if it's within trend, you take the breakdown. You just take it. You don't wait for the bounce, but you watch your size because you want to be very sensitive to risk. Okay? But the bounces are sell zones, and they could go as high as 19,000. I mean, listen, this thing could go all the way to, this is yesterday, so let me remove all these fib sequences. Yeah, it could go all the way into the value area low, up at the 300s. You know how this thing moves like a rocket ship. And that's really all she wrote right there, literally. So bounces are sell zones, but it could be a very shallow sell. You just have to pay attention. Look at the daily and the weekly here. This thing's really breaking down at the 30. So remember, these big weekly candlesticks that come into ranges are going to slosh, break down, hold, break down, hold, break down, hold. And then they're going to make a decision. Take a look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks in this relative range of break down and hold, break down and hold, break down and hold. So be careful. Sloshy, absolutely sloshy. Let's take a look at the YM. The YM, of course, I said, hey, listen, we've got ourselves a particular topic formation. We could take the very top of that. It did not come for us. It just continued, right? It started right at the top, pre-market, and then faded, lost the trend line, and that's all she wrote. So remember, when I say, listen, if it moves sideways, 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 and it can't break, and the hull is above you, the breakdown is a continuation. So let's see, let's go to the 30-minute and see if it actually gives us a chance on this breakdown event, or we just chase the fade. Like I say, hey, listen, just chase that fade. All right, so here it is. We come in sideways, sideways, sideways. It collapses pre-market, so it never comes back to this area. As it collapses, hold, 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 hold. What's the trend? Down, sideways, sideways, sideways. It's going to break. It's going to break down. That's very likely in something where all of the moving averages are trending in the same direction. It's telling you that in smaller time frames, everybody's agreeing that the bounces are only going to be used to eliminate inventory on their books. Okay? Daily formation says that potentially we could move all the way back down to 40,000, which, I mean, that's 900 points from here. So probably not going to do it in a day. But the stair-step motion into, let's take this one. Oops. And let's, 40,694. That would be the next likely step. And then, 40,454 bounces. Clearly sell zones. Where is the very best shorting bounce? It's going to be way up here at 51,273. All right. So two-way tape, 100% two-way tape. You want to be supremely careful in this market space, or you're going to get shredded. Here is our topping formation. Here's the ledge. I said, hey, listen, we break this. We're headed to 551 and maybe 544. That's probably the next line in the sand, 544. Let's see where price action agrees. 542.30, 543, somewhere about there, right? Peak. It's going to, the closer it gets to this, the more this will act like a vacuum, a suction event. Same thing as the closer it gets to this low volume node, it'll do the same thing. I'm going to move this volume node up into old resistance, new support. We'll see 537 is the next step. Possible relief bounce on the horizon, right? 554. Yeah, to 557. That's going to make a great area for the shorting action. Now, you could say, well, Anne-Marie, can't I take a counter trend long if it's going to bounce all of that? Hey, listen, that's a great question. How do you want to do that? First thing you want to do is find a formation where that's the prevalent trend. Well, if I collapse all the way down to the 30-minute, I don't see anything like that. Okay? So the wind is not at my back there. Let's go all the way to the 5. Also, nothing telling me buying the dip is going to hold. Nothing. Let's go to a 1 minute. Nothing. Let's take a look at on the 1 minute. Nothing. Here, the one thing you could go as well, here's my 30, and it's starting to flatten out. That's great. Buy the dip as long as, don't buy it up here. You're going to have all of this risk. Unless you're going with a 1 lot or a micro, then that's cool. But this line, you got to go, okay, I'm thinking about this moving average being the primary indicator that tells me I've got to bounce in the proper direction. My pullbacks are buy zones. And if I chase it here at this 55.19, I must assume all the risk down to 55.15. If I want to do that, well, you might go, well, that's only 4 points. Yes, but wouldn't it be better if you didn't have 4 points of risk, that you only had 2.5 or something like that? But that's how you go, hey, I'm going to buy the dip. Collapse down into the time frame that's going to show you, hey, I can follow this particular formation and trade those smaller time frames. Okay? All right. Now, let's finally look at the cues. Those are terrible. Point of control right here. This is still holding downward, but people might go, oh, wait, it's a bull flag. I don't think it is. I just think it's a movement downward into a retrace. And so if we do an old-fashioned Fibonacci, and we take this range to that range, oh, look at that, 61.8. Actually, that's the 38.2 because I brought it from the bottom. If I do it the proper way, you'll see that it's a very shallow retrace right now. The 38.2 is where it's at right now. 61.8 is way down here. So what's showing up? This is down, bounces or sell zones. Where's the sell zone event? 465 to 471. If you go, or the collapse of this congested low at 457. And that takes us all the way back down to 452, if that is the case. All right? So that's going to be it for me. I know we could take a look at oil. I know we could take a look at gold. I just took a lot of time explaining execution, and that always makes the recordings run long. So I'll see you all on the Midday Moneyball Report if you're a part of the Benzinga Pro platform. And otherwise, you know, you can catch me on Top Step TV in the Discord. All right. Take care, everybody. See you soon.